Hey everybody, it's Noel Christopher with Renter's Warehouse. I'm doing my LinkedIn live show today. I missed the show yesterday or last week because frankly, I was just a little bit unorganized and had a lot of calls stack up and I was not able to do the show. So I'm flirting with some different ideas on doing more ad hoc shows. And it'd be great to hear anybody's questions, comments, ideas on shows I should do. I'm going to be adding some more guests coming up, some great guests. Getting a little bit of help with that from my company on getting some great guests booked. And the purpose of this show is to really just talk about the single family rental space, talk about some housing news that's going on, talk about some different things that are happening that I'm doing personally with my company and personally, frankly. So I'm going to get right into it. The core logic, which what I call the home price HPI report, just came out recently. It's a home price insights report. And I just posted something on LinkedIn about this, a video that I posted about 6 months ago, predicting that the home price appreciation in the coming months would be about 3%, actually 2 to 3%. It came out at 3.6%. And it's looking like in the future, it's going to be becoming, the prediction is about 5.4% in the next 12 months. That's pretty aggressive. And that is some really interesting news because a lot of people have been really focused on the recession coming, a housing crash coming, and I'm going to post a few of these videos later on that I've been posting since last year, talking about this year is going to be a strong year. There's a lot of reasons for that. A lot of things could be chalked up to affordability, which then is really about a housing supply issue. And so there's a lack of housing supply. It's keeping the prices up. There is also still wage growth that's happening. Income is increasing. Even with all this talk with a recession, which I think some of it can even be a little bit political, and even with the trade war that's happening that does affect the economy, we're still in a strong economy. And the housing market, it's funny because the housing market is something that where the housing market goes, the economy goes. But that being said, there could be a recession. And the housing market can still stay strong because it depends on where the recession is hitting and things like that. So it's really interesting, though, because you're now getting millennials back into the marketplace. And the millennials are really, the older millennials are hitting the age where they have families, where they are starting to buy. And it is something that's really interesting to see these millennials coming into the marketplace, and not all of them are going to be able to buy. So what that's going to mean is that a lot of them are going to rent. And there's some interesting numbers here. So here's some it's sorry, I'm trying to add this in. There we go. Okay. Actually, I'm going to switch this, but that's okay. It's very interesting because the home price appreciation that's happening in these states is, excuse me. I apologize, having a little bit of technical difficulty here controlling this stuff. difficulties here. What happens is that you see smaller markets, they start to do really well, and you're seeing this great growth in all of these markets. And with that, with the CoreLogic report, so they're forecasting 5.4% year over year HPA in the next 12 months. I think that's interesting. Some other things that they're talking about, and so people are clear that that's year over year. I think the month over month they grew about 5%, and they're predicting it's going to grow about 4% a month in the coming 12 months. There's also some. I'm going to pull up this graph here that is some of the cities that are very, very interesting as well. So this is some of the top 10 cities of their growth. So you're looking at San Diego, LA. You can't see Las Vegas on here, but Las Vegas is up there in that very, very strong growth. Apologize here. So Las Vegas is 5.4%. Las Vegas is another hot market. Denver's at 3.7%. Denver's actually off quite a bit. Same with Houston. And it's interesting to see that a lot of investors are still coming to Denver, still coming to these different markets. And it's just, all this data is very interesting to me because it's hard to get a really good pulse off of some of this stuff. I think the next map that I'm going to show you here, this is what interests me the most. This is a map of the undervalued and overvalued markets around the country. And what's interesting, so the red here is overvalued, gray is normal, the turquoise is undervalued. I'm really concerned, or not really concerned, really interested in these undervalued and normal markets. So you see a lot of these hot markets that have had a lot of investment recently, and those are overvalued markets. I'd be interested to see how some of this changes with the hurricanes have come through. But the coastal areas, got Arizona, Colorado, a lot of areas in Texas, and there's a lot of areas that are still undervalued, that are still great investment markets. You're looking at places like Oklahoma and Alabama, Indiana, you've got the Kansas Cities of the world. You've got Columbus, Ohio. All these different markets that are great markets that I think if you really wanted to think about investments, these are the markets to go after. And the reason that I focus on this stuff is because we're now in a world where you can go and invest into multiple markets, into multiple ancillary markets or secondary markets, or what we call just a top 100 market, and have the same efficiencies that a lot of the funds needed to create by investing heavily in some of these bigger markets. Meaning that you don't have to buy 500 homes or 300 homes or 200 homes in a market. You don't need to have that operational scale anymore because of the advances in technologies and the efficiencies in the space. So you can go out there and you can buy in multiple markets. And in fact, what we have is we've got some investors, I'm going to talk about this in a minute, that are coming to us saying, I want to buy in 25 markets. Let's pick your top 25 markets that Renters Warehouse is in, and maybe even a few markets that we're not operational in as far as property management. And we're going to start buying, and we're creating acquisition buying platforms in these markets through a combination of technology, boots on the ground, and our expertise. I mean, the combined expertise in our company with myself, Greg Rand, and what we call the SFR Dream Team that we're hiring is unbelievable. And we have a ton of experience and on buying in multiple markets, underwriting homes, and executing some of these strategies. And fast forward from when we were doing this 3, 4, 5 years ago to now, the technology is just amazing. So not trying to necessarily plug what I do, just trying to highlight that it's available. And trust me, I'm not naive thinking that there won't be somebody else or other groups who are going to definitely be able to compete with us in this space. And they're out there. I know some of them, and it's really interesting. So what we've been doing, and this is a great segue with our company, is we've been going into these markets. For example, we hired a guy named Dan Reedy in Kansas City. He's one of the top agents in the country. He is a professional in the SFR investment space and knows how to underwrite and work the market to find the great deals for our investors. We're hiring people like this in every market. And now this is a shameless plug, because anybody out there listening, anybody out there that reads this, we are looking for those type of SFR, single family rental experts to be able to help us acquire homes for funds that we have. And, I talk to a lot of people, and I talk to a lot of people who say, well, I know of all the funds. It's not true. There are funds out there that a lot of people don't know about that are starting to execute. And you see some of them coming up in the news. You saw the REIT that just acquired or merged with Reven, which is interesting news, because that is a REIT that has never been in the space. I don't have their name in front of me right now, but it's really interesting what's going on in the space right now, and it's constantly moving and changing, and we're trying to keep up with that. My day-to-day and what I do is a lot of different things. I'm focused on cultivating some relationships with some larger SFR buyers, funds, both on selling their portfolios and helping them buy more portfolios or buy one-off homes. I cultivate a lot of those relationships. I work with some strategic partnerships. We just signed a great deal with Loan Depot, and we are going to be doing something with Loan Depot over the next year here, where we are, going to be aligning ourselves with them on the smaller investor loans, because we also work with large investors, but our bread and butter clients are the small investor, and so that's what we really focus on. But I'm focused a little bit on the bigger investors. We're also focusing on I also focus on some strategic partnerships, things like Loan Depot, and then also property management acquisitions. You'll be hearing some news coming out at the end of the year of a couple of large acquisitions that we're working on in the property management space. And it's going to be a big splash and a big change for our company. It's really exciting things that are happening. And we have some competitors that are out there doing similar things that we are. So my day-to-day, I work remotely. This is my home office. My day-to-day is I'm hitting the phones. I'm doing research. I'm keeping up with the industry. And I'm out there, the other thing that I'm out there doing is I am helping build what we call our multi-channel acquisition strategy. That is for some of these funds that want to acquire in multiple markets. That's requiring us to set up a team in each market that's going out there specifically working for me to help acquire these homes for some of these funds. And we're targeting these secondary markets. I'll be very upfront with that. And we're also scouring the top markets, because deals come up and things fluctuate in real estate where there's opportunities. But that's everything from hiring the team, finding the right people to execute the strategy, and also figure out the technology. We're constantly upgrading our technology to become more efficient. But one thing with that is that I caution those who and try to ruffle some feathers with some people that I know very well, but I don't believe that there's an automated valuation, an automated process to underwrite homes that without having a human touch. So you can take it 80% of the way there and underwrite a single family rental home, but you need somebody to go out to the property to actually look at it, put eyes on it, take a educated view of that home before you send it to the investor. And we go back and forth with some of the funds that we work with that want us to just get out there and really get offers out and figure you can kind of put a formula to it. That's great. But we also have a reputation that we need to keep intact. And so it's important for us, and we're willing to make a little bit less, spend a little bit more to go out there and underwrite these homes properly. And use some automated processes to get it most of the way there, but then send an agent out, do a full 30-minute inspection, which we call snap inspect, that we would do when we're working with some small investors or larger investors on a rental property, to fully inspect the property, to be able to get a decent scope of that property, and then submit that whole entire package to an investor, so that when they look at the property, they are able to make a decision, trusting the process that we've set up. And when a realtor or an agent that we're making an offer to can trust that we've done our due diligence on the property, and there isn't going to be a whole lot of retrades down the road. And I experienced this back in Chicago when we were having to buy in one market a couple hundred homes a month, and we were having to shoot offers out there every day, and we had to do a lot of retrades. And the only thing that saved us was the fact that we were buying so many homes in one market that the realtors would put up with the fact that we were going to offer first, get it under contract, then inspect. We're not in that market anymore. There is a lack of supply. There are way more investors and homeowners out there competing for a property. So we need to be able to quickly underwrite, send somebody out for the inspection, get it to the investor, and get it under contract. If we put offers out first with the amount of other buyers that are out there, and we don't have our due diligence done on the front end, we're going to lose credibility, and we're going to lose out deals to people who are just faster than us. So that's kind of a little bit about what I've been doing day to day, of figuring out that process, figuring out some technology, trying to hire what we call the SFR dream team. And that is those agents or people in markets all across the country who've done this before, who are expert in this space. And what we're seeing is what we call that second decade of the SFR space. The first decade was the large institutional funds coming in 2011, 2012, and beyond, and really setting the floor of the real estate market in a lot of these markets, creating processes, acquiring at scale, and institutionalizing the single-family rental space. Now, the second decade is what we're seeing is smaller funds, new money, mid-sized funds, multifamily funds, all kinds that are coming into the space that are now looking to leverage all of the work that we all did to build the space up. And now all the processes and the efficiencies that we've created can now really see on the ROI. I believe, I've seen some of these funds that are operating at certain ROIs. Certain expense ratios. I really truly believe those expense ratios are going to start going down with efficiencies. So it's all really, really interesting stuff. So that's some of the stuff I do on a daily basis. If anybody's watching and they would have any questions for me, please feel free to shoot your question. We're really, I'm doing this solo today. Like I said, I'm going to be getting some other guests in. But something else I want to talk about a little bit, because I'm in sales. I've decided to become an expert in the single-family rental space, but it's still sales, and there's a sales process. I live and die on LinkedIn. I sometimes find it hard to keep up with keeping posts, and I've talked to some great experts out there who've given me great advice, and I've been posting videos, trying to do text posts and all these types of things. But your network is so important, and I've been working on building my network and putting out good content and being a giver and giving out free information. If you're just tuning into this, go back a few minutes. I just gave out a ton of free information on what our strategy is to be successful in this space. I'm always on LinkedIn. I'm always trying to put myself out there. So I'd love it if anybody had any advice or insight there. It's funny because as much as I'm out there selling on LinkedIn, I very rarely sell through my messaging or messages as far as LinkedIn messages. So I will send people messages and I will follow up with them. And in fact, probably 90% of my external communication, meaning the communication that is not through with my people internally with my company is on LinkedIn. I pretty much have started to use LinkedIn as my messaging platform rather than emails, because I can pull up somebody, I can see the entire history that I've talked to them from however long it's been, and it's just a better way to communicate for me. But what I don't do is pitch on those messages. I think it's better to let your content and what you're about show through in your LinkedIn profile and try to always send pitches. I get pitches every single day from people who have no idea what we do and have no idea if it's relevant, if what they offer is relevant for what we do. That is always, very interesting. So I wanted to throw that out there. So Michael Polk just asked me to talk about my last article. So I do write articles for, and I'm going to pull this article up so I can be familiar with it because I've been writing a few of them here. So I write articles for Forbes. It's a great way to get my message out, and another way to promote what we do in a way of education, which I really believe is great. And so my last article is called "What's a New Normal in the Single Family Rental Space as Investors Rising Up." And so what's interesting about this, and I talked about this a little bit before, is that the mid-size investors, meaning some people use mid-cap, but mid-cap can get confusing because a mid-cap could mean $1 billion fund. These aren't always $1 billion funds, although there's a couple of $1 billion funds that are coming into the SFR space that you'll hear about at some point that we're working with. But these mid-cap funds are anybody from 25 to 2,000 homes that they own or that they intend to buy. Some of them are what I call multifamily funds that are getting into the space because they're seeing an opportunity. They're seeing their rents compress because of oversupply sometimes where the and just to get off topic a little bit here, multifamily, you can quickly build a lot of units, which then could affect rents. Single family is just hard to do that. And I'm going to talk about this in a minute, some of the zoning. But so single family rents can stay pretty steady during a recession. And, there are, what I call single family, sometimes 1 to 4 residences. It's 53% of all U.S. rentals. All people are renting is 1 to 4 units. And that's about 23 million rentals. And there's an estimated to be about 13 million new rental households are expected to be formed by 2030. All of those people don't live in apartments. It's funny because I talk to a lot of people about this, and they assume that when you're talking about rentals, everybody lives in an apartment. It's not true. 35% of all rentals are single-family rentals, and that's expected to continue to grow. So when you're looking at just in single-family, about 17 million rentals, when you add 1 to 4 units, which then brings in more of the urban areas, you're talking about 23 million rentals, and you're going to need another 13 million in the next 12 years. That's why there's an opportunity in this space. It's not going away. There is continued household formation is outpacing the livable real estate. So what's happened is the mid-sized investors are starting to come into this space. So the institutional investors are still going to grow, and they're still going to be part of this, but they own less than 2%. There's, to kind of back up on these numbers, there's 17 million rentals. 90% of them are owned by people, or actually, let's say 23 million or 90% are owned by people in less than 10 units. 50% are owned 1. Less than 5 or it's like 80%. So there's a lot of opportunity for consolidation. And so with the efficiencies in the space, now you've got smart guys who own 10, 20, 30 units. Hey, I want to own 100. Or the guys that own 100 or 200 now want to own 1,000. And those are those mid-sized investors. There's capital for them to invest. Interest rates are low right now, which is great. I mean, there are investors right now that people are getting at the 4.3%, which is amazing. That increases that expands the box that you can buy in your cost of capital. And so that's interesting. So you're in a really, really investor-friendly environment right now, even with the affordability issues. They're still undervalued markets. Now you can go into those markets, and I talked about that a minute ago, of some of these undervalued markets where you can go in. You've got a lot of different things with, being able to work remotely, being able to do a lot of just the world is expanding into a lot of these smaller markets, and it's just interesting stuff. So the mid cap investors are coming in, they're buying, they're growing. There is now another topic on that is liquidity in the marketplace. There is more liquidity in the marketplace. And what that means, and when I'm talking about this, is that if you own an investment property and you need to sell it, what do most people do? Most people go on the MLS, or they go to an agent, and they talk to that real estate agent. That agent tells them that they need to, they ask them when the tenant is going to move out, so they can then fix up the home and sell it to an owner-occupied buyer. That's what's happening today. 90% of the time when you go talk to somebody, they're going to tell you that. Now, that's something that we're trying to change. What we're trying to change is that we have a marketplace. Roofstock has a marketplace. SVN kind of has a marketplace, but not really. They're really focused on the larger portfolios. But us and Roofstock are now places you can go to and sell your investment property. And I have no problem talking about our competitors because we all know each other. We have a little bit different models, and I can talk about that in a little bit here. But you can now put a home on a marketplace. You can sell it occupied. There's actually agents out there that focus on that in that business. We can walk you through that process, and you're going to save 8 to 10% of the costs of selling the home by selling it as a tenanted occupied house. And there is a marketplace for that. So that creates liquidity in the marketplace. That creates more investors wanting to come into the marketplace. I mean, we've got investors right now that we're working with that are selling their portfolio in Minneapolis so they can go all in and buy more lower cost properties in some of these affordable markets. So they bought Minneapolis. The values have gone up. They've got a great appreciation. Now they are selling and going and buying in other markets and just wash and repeat. So that's brought in more investors into the space. So, how are we identifying these emerging markets? It's not just looking at a core logic map and going, that's an undervalued market. So we look at a lot of different things. We look at home price performance. If appreciation is part of your strategy, then you want to look at that, how that appreciation is going to go. Now, to caution you on this is that I like to just count on that 3.5% appreciation and understand that anything about that's gravy because this is a long-term strategy. Employment trends, population growth, and expected growth, that's a huge one. Those employment trends and population are really, really important. Building permits is something we kind of look at you look at see what's happening in the areas, and I'm going to talk about that too in a second, with the apartments, differences between single family and apartments, and then also building permits, because this is something that's interesting that's happening around the country. Affordability, what's the affordability of a market? How affordable is it? And the absorption rates. How quickly can you rent a home there? And so a lot of these are things you talk about in multifamily too. The difference is in the single family, because of scarcity, you're going to have less fluctuations of rent compared to multifamily. Because multifamily, you could build a large multifamily complex and it's going to affect the rents. And we're seeing some of these things happen in markets like Seattle, where they've really started to build more multifamily. It's started to push down some of the rents. It's pushed down the single family a little bit, but not much. It's really just pushed down the apartment rents, because those living in single family homes are paying a premium because they want to live in a single family home. What we're seeing around the country, and there's been some interesting articles about this, is that because of the scarcity of buildable lots, they're starting to strip away some of the single family zoning. And what that means is it's allowing, for example, the state of Oregon and Minneapolis are two examples. Minneapolis, they stripped away single family zoning. So now you can build multifamily, I think up to a certain point, on single family lots. It's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out, because the question is going to be, does it affect the values and does it affect the rents? Those are the things I'm looking at. So depending on the area and what they're building, yeah, it could affect the values a little bit. But now you're still comparing a multifamily to a single family. They're two totally different things. And I think it positively affect values. It'll be interesting to anybody thinks about this, because it's going to create more density. But the single family homes are still single family homes. I think what the perception is that the tenant for a multifamily is not going to be the type of person that people want in a neighborhood. I think that's completely false. I think that it depends on the neighborhood. It depends on the type of multifamily that they're building. Now, this isn't going to mean that, like, on a single family lot, you're going to have a 12-unit building. It's going to be 1 to 4 units. And most of them in nice neighborhoods will be condo style, and it's going to just depend on the neighborhood and the type of renters that you get. But I don't think it's going to hurt values that much, and I really don't think it's going to hurt rents. It's funny because we get a lot of people come to us about helping us find more tenants as a company, as a property management company. We manage about 22,000 homes around the country, and for us, there is no problem finding people who want to rent the houses. There is a lack of housing. That is a big issue for people to understand. There's a lack of housing. There will be plenty of tenants who want to move to a small multifamily, into a condo quality place, or into a single family. I don't think it's going to affect the rents in the single family. I think it's going to help things. Maybe it'll slow down the appreciation a little bit, but it's going to take years for this to happen anyways. But it's interesting. I would be interested to see how this push on the removing the single family zoning around the country to create more density, because the theory is that single family homes take up so much space, and once that space is taken up, there's no more room to build. And so what most MSAs, most areas have done is they've gone out and sprawl. But now the trend is most people want to live, they don't mind living far away from the main city, but they want to live in an area that has walkability, that has some sort of a city center, even if it's a small city center. And so that's causing some density issues where you're going to need to create a little bit more density, and that urban sprawl or suburban sprawl, is not as appealing. And then even getting to the exurbs, it's not as appealing. People want to live in a place that is interesting and has things going on. It doesn't have to be a large city. And so that's why you see some of these really interesting suburbs popping up outside of large cities within an hour's drive, that have a nice city center. They have shopping. They have all these things, and you have these communities being built around them. And those are the interesting places to also invest into rentals, because that is where people are buying, where people are moving. The fact is that a high percentage of them are going to rent. It is just the numbers, and the stigma of renting a house is no longer there. So it's many people are choosing to rent as a lifestyle. You also have, you can even go deeper into this about housing supply and baby boomers that aren't selling, but some baby boomers are selling and downsizing into a rental. So what we're seeing is, you'll see some of this is anecdotal, but you see some baby boomers that sell their larger house if they can sell it, which is a whole different subject or a different issue. And then instead of trying to find another smaller house, which there's a lack of product out there, they're moving into some rental communities. You have these build for rent developers that are building either scattered site rentals, brand new, or what's even more interesting is they're building communities. We have a couple of them that are our clients that build these communities, and you've got millennials moving in, you've got over 55, and sometimes they're targeted at one or the other. And many of the over 55 are selling their home. They don't want to deal with the maintenance. They're not interested in moving into an apartment. I mean, think about this. If you're getting towards retirement age, your kids are out of the house, you don't want to have to take care of the house in the same way, but do you really want to move into an apartment? The reason that some of the older generations were moving into apartments because they didn't have nice rental houses to move into. This is my opinion. Now that you have these nice communities being built, it is night and day. I've seen some in Texas where you have a brand new luxury or nicer, older community or older targeted rental apartment building going up, like nice apartment building. And then right down the street is a single family, or what we call garden homes, community of homes being built where all the amenities are taken care of. The lawn is all common ground. They have a little backyard with their dog. They can sit on their porch and live like a house, but not have to take care of it like a large single family home. And they're getting much higher rents, and they're getting the apartment building is having more trouble filling them with the higher renting tenant that they were targeted. And so just some interesting stuff there that I'm seeing. So I'm going to start wrapping up the show. I'm going to leave it with this. Hope everybody had a great Labor Day weekend. I went camping with the family. I live out in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and I made this choice to move out here and take the risk of finding a job and working remotely. And so far it's worked out. I happened to time it at the same time remote working became more popular. But so I hope everybody had a great holiday, good start to the school season. My kids just started back at school. I have a daughter in third grade and a daughter in first grade, and they go to the Montessori school here in Steamboat Springs, and it's been really exciting. I'm really looking forward to the coming year, and you'll see some more stuff about what I do. Some of the pictures behind me here are old pictures of me skiing. I actually currently still ski race. It's something that I have a passion about, and it's a lot of fun. So I'll start sharing some more things like that. But anyway, thanks for watching the show. Please comment if you're watching this after the fact. If you have any questions, any feedback, anything like that, I really appreciate it. I haven't done as many solo shows, but I'm going to kind of start mixing those in and maybe even doing some ad hoc LinkedIn. I'm waiting for Social Live for their Android app to work where I can do do live shows from my phone. Right now it's just on iPhone. So thanks for watching. I look forward to hearing from you all. And please, if you like to check out renterswarehouse.com, we're hiring. We are hiring agents all over the country, and we've got a great strategy. If you are a single family rental expert in any market around the country, contact me. We're trying to buy. We're buying homes for our investors. And we're also hiring these experts. We actually have a home for them to go to instead of just working for a brokerage that's focused on bringing in owner-occupied buyers. We're all investment focused. So thanks for watching, and have a great day. Thank you.